Have you ever thought about how a single promise could be passed down through countless generations? Today we trace the royal and spiritual lineage of Jesus Christ. Hello everyone, welcome back to our series on the life of Jesus Christ. In the previous episode, we explored the promises of a Savior in the Old Testament. We saw how prophets like Isaiah and Micah foretold the coming of the Messiah. Now, we look at how God preserved this promise through a remarkable family tree. The genealogy of Jesus is more than a list of names. It is a living testimony of faith, perseverance, and God's unwavering plan. Matthew's Gospel begins with a record of Jesus' lineage from Abraham to Joseph. It shows that Jesus is the direct descendant of Abraham, the father of the Jewish nation. This connection fulfills God's covenant with Abraham. God promised that through his offspring all nations would be blessed. The genealogy also links Jesus to King David. This fulfills the prophecy that the Messiah would come from David's royal line. The list of names in Matthew includes both great heroes and deeply flawed individuals. We find Abraham, the father of faith. We see Jacob, who wrestled with God. We meet Rahab, a woman of courage who helped the Israelites. We see Ruth, a Moabite woman who became part of God's people through loyalty and love. There is David, a man after God's own heart, but also a man who made grave mistakes. Solomon, known for wisdom, yet struggled with faithfulness. These names remind us that God works through imperfect people. His plan is not hindered by human weakness. Each generation carried the promise forward, whether in times of glory or exile. Even during Israel's darkest moments, God's plan never failed. The genealogy also includes women, which was unusual in ancient Jewish records. This inclusion highlights God's value for all people in his plan of salvation. Luke's Gospel offers another genealogy, tracing Jesus' lineage back to Adam. This shows that Jesus came not only for the Jewish people, but for all humanity. From Adam, the first man, to Abraham, to David, and finally to Jesus. It is a story of God's faithfulness from the very beginning. The gaps between generations sometimes span centuries, yet the thread of the promise remains unbroken. In times of exile in Babylon, in the rebuilding of Jerusalem, the hope endured. When foreign empires rose and fell, God's plan moved forward. Each name is a chapter in a greater story. Some names are well known, others are obscure, yet each one was chosen by God to carry the promise closer to fulfillment. The genealogy shows us that God's plan is patient. He works through the long sweep of history to accomplish his purposes. It teaches us that no one is too small to play a role in God's story. It reminds us that our lives may be part of something far greater than we see now. The family tree of Jesus is a bridge between the Old and New Testaments. It connects prophecy to fulfillment, promise to reality. It tells us that the birth of Jesus was no random event. It was the climax of a divine narrative written over thousands of years. When we read these names, we remember the faith that carried the promise forward. We see God's mercy in working through sinners and saints alike. We are encouraged to trust in God's plan, even when the path seems unclear. The genealogy invites us to see ourselves in God's unfolding story. We too can carry his promise forward through faith and obedience. The story of Jesus' family tree shows us that God's promises never fail. It reminds us that he is the Lord of history and the keeper of his word. Understanding his lineage deepens our appreciation for the miracle of his birth. It gives us a new perspective on the meaning of Christmas. It assures us that God is faithful to every promise he makes. In the next episode, we will witness the miraculous Annunciation. We will see how the angel Gabriel brings the long-awaited message to Mary. This moment will mark the turning point when prophecy becomes reality. Thank you for joining me today. Please like, comment, and subscribe to follow our series on the life of Jesus. See you in the next episode.